Hello, my name is Konstantinos Michmizos. I'm an assistant professor at Rutgers University, where I direct the Computational Brain Lab. Before I'll tell you how we endorse our robots with some of the brain's most remarkable characteristics, let me put our brain-inspired controllers into context. The brain shares key concepts with both analog and digital computers, but computes in its own distinct way to mitigate noise. It uses analog representation for computation, while neurons transmit discrete events, spikes. This combination defines a distinct quadrant which hasn't been explored, and I'm going to argue that this is the key that distinguishes what the brain is doing and what our neuromorphic approach offers as compared to purely analog or purely digital computations. In fact, the pioneers of computation have always been keenly interested in the brain. The neuromorphic field is now one of the fastest growing fields, with global vendors forming research alliances with leading universities to gain a competitive edge in the industry. Why? For 50 years now, the principal guiding developing systems has been Moore's law, that we will always find a way to engineer faster, smaller, and cheaper chips. But Moore's law is no longer able to keep up. The reason? Physics. As we downsize transistors down to the atomic scale, the architecture becomes inefficient. The trade-off between computing faster and consuming more power now becomes even more crucial as we approach the physical limits of fabricating transistors. And the final nail in Moore's law coffin is put by deep learning. The computational needs are now orders of magnitude higher compared to what our systems can deliver. And as our systems were designed with feasibility, not efficiency at their center, the explosive growth of AI and robotics is limited by the current efficiency of our robots. We're nowhere near ready or prepared for this computational tsunami. There is no better time than this to consider the feasibility of new solutions. What we need is an infrastructure that is versatile, robust, and power efficient to handle these seismic shifts in our needs. And what we have now is enough knowledge on how the brain can achieve these goals. The brain is fault tolerant. It is also extremely power efficient, and it performs self-learning, which is perhaps its most important attribute. We focus in advancing non-von Neumann robotic controllers that draw from the brain's functional analysis. We develop brain-inspired controllers for robots that can reproduce or repair the human ability to move. To do so, we redefine robotic controllers as spiking neural networks where memory, learning, and computations are tightly integrated. This real-life benchmarking of our methods is what shifts the perspective of brain-inspired computing from a radical idea to a valuable approach that can complement or replace mainstream methods. But we who work in this neuromorphic field were also unwitting agents for a computing paradigm that too often does not serve. Why? Scaling. The challenge for our methods is now to outperform conventional methods at comparable scales. In this quest, I found it particularly useful to inform our technical contributions with a principled understanding of neuroscience. That's why our overarching goal is to scale neuromorphic robots by further pursuing their biological plausibility. To achieve this goal, we computationally capture recent breakthroughs in neuroscience. We translate this knowledge into learning algorithms and brain-optimized architectures, and harness the emerging human-like behavior into neuromorphic hardware, which allows us to benchmark our systems and prove that our neuromorphic controllers are robust, versatile, and orders of magnitude more energy efficient compared to the conventional state of the art. But how we design our neuromorphic controllers? Well, we start from where digital computers have taken us. The key ingredients for building a robotic system are known: hardware, signal representation, architecture, controller algorithms. There are direct analogies between the first three ingredients and those of brain-inspired robots. But something interesting happens at the top, at the algorithmic level. We do not really know the algorithms that our brain runs. To be more precise, we know bits of these algorithms through neuroscience. For example, there is this laborious effort to map the brain's connectome. But the theory of computation tells us that there are infinite algorithms for the same task. We know from the classical universality results that neuron-like systems can, in principle, implement any algorithm. So how do we design neuromorphic algorithms for our controllers in a principled way? In some cases, brain algorithms end up being the computational behavior of the hardware. The algorithm vanishes because the hardware is well adapted to the task and has co-evolved with the task. The inputs and the biochemical environments are adequate for driving the hardware in an essentially algorithm-free way. This is exactly what we achieved in this heretic approach of developing a spiking network that acts as a controller for our in-house robotic head prototype. We move our eyes 100,000 times per day. So eye movements are controlled by a very well-trained network. We harvested 60 years of studies on the human oculomotor system and designed an algorithm-free spiking controller. As the network design draws from the oculomotor system, the spiking network needs no training to operate. This signifies that network topology serves the function and goes against the backpropagation school of thought, where we need data to shape the network structure. Also, the network does not have any trainable hyperparameter. Its parameters are grounded to biology. Its subnetworks are biologically interpretable, and human-like eye movements emerge from the network without us designing them. Technically, the tracking performance of our method was the same as that of a widely used controller in the industry. We've also developed a replica of our prototype to be used as an educational robot for a permanent exhibit at the Monmouth Children's Museum in New Jersey to help children understand how robots and the brain work. Let me show you one example of how we informed the design of our spiking network using neuroscience. The cells that define visual acuity are much more densely packed near the center of the fovea. And as we move away from that center, they become scarcer and the receptive fields cover larger areas. That's exactly how we designed our neuromorphic retinal layer. In fact, what you see here is 25% of the connections for just the horizontal controller. What you do not see is that each one of these nodes is in fact a subnetwork by itself with its own connectivity and different types of neurons, including bursting neurons, tonic neurons, inhibitory neurons, or a mixture of them. The oculomotor controller is unique in a sense that it offers an end-to-end neuromorphic solution. The encoding and processing of information is done exclusively via spikes, communicated across spiking models of biological neurons. You can see in real time the spiking activity of key neurons taken from various subnetworks and the resultant behavior of the network. The robot kinematics are strikingly similar to those reported in human eye studies. Saccades and pursuit movements emerge as a function of the network without any training. So I demonstrated here our main contribution by developing a neuromimetic bottom-up controller where intelligence emerges. But there is one more thing. We wondered whether we could train the input layer of our network starting from random weights. We combined a variation of a biologically plausible STDP rule and the reward function based on the distance between the fovea and the laser target on the wall. We got a slightly better performance when we used this reward-based Hebbian learning, but perhaps it's more important to emphasize that the learned weights settled into a spatial distribution that was very similar to the one that we had initially used to design that network based on the connectivity strengths as reported in the literature. So are we there yet? Not so fast. I presented a neuromorphic controller for a biomimetic robot that exhibits some widely desired characteristics such as interpretability. The main disadvantage of our approach is that it does not currently scale. To scale it, we need to know in a granular detail the brain activity that is associated with a targeted function, which is beyond our current reach. The neuroscience gap, in fact, gets wider as we enter the cognitive domain, where our understanding is even less detailed. And this is where, with the appropriate mathematical formalism, we can bridge these gaps of neuroscience and create robotic controllers that draw from both worlds, neuroscience as well as mathematical science. And this concludes my talk. I hope everyone is staying safe, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in person.